This is Kevin Conroy, and I am the goddamn Batman.
You've just jumped inside the pull bag. Join TFG1Mike and the rest of the comic crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, and Image to IDW, Boom Studios, and Zenescope, we have everything right here. We cover things like Transformers, He-Man, superheroes, TMNT, and Radiant Black. Yeah, we have all that and so much more. It's all inside the pull bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So, without further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we're reading right now, here inside the pull bag.
This is how I'll always remember you. Surrounded by winter, forever young, forever beautiful. Rest well, my love. The monster who took you from me will soon learn that revenge is a dish best served cold.
Hello and welcome to The Pull Bag. This is episode 409.5. This is kicking off, what is it kicking off? It's kicking off,
Curse of the White.
Crystal what?
Curse of the White Knight, man.
Yes, there's that. It is kicking off Batman and Beast Wars month because we have 3 Batman things in this month and 1 Beast Wars comic to talk about in this month of May of 2021. Joining me, as you heard, is Edward Hale. Hello, sir.
How you doing, bro?
I'm still here. And joining us always is his cohort, Kendra Hale. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. And yes, we are von freezing our nuts off at this point. Because, yes, Batman, White Knight, Curse of the White Knight, I don't even know. So this is a one-shot, and from what I read at the end of this book, in the letter that Sean Murphy put, was that it was originally supposed to be a part of the original 8 issues of White Knight. And now it's supposed to fit somewhere between issues 6 and 7 of Curse of the White Knight. I don't even know. I don't care. I asked him, I said, look, White Knight, and then Von Freeze, and then Curse, and he said yes, essentially. So that's why we're doing Von Freeze in between what we did a couple of years ago, which was White Knight, and Curse of the White Knight, which will be 2 episodes later in this month. Makes me so mad, and it's not him. It has nothing to do with Sean. It's everything to do with DC and how they do their stuff. I had originally bought this one-shot thinking that, it's, its own thing. It's still part of the White Knight universe, but it's not going to be contained in anything else. I then purchased the trade for Curse, and it is at the end of the trade for Curse. And he said to me, because I messaged him on Instagram, I wanted to make sure I got this stuff right. He goes, yeah, it was kind of printed out of order. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, there's actually, I believe it's supposed to take place in between, 2 specific panels. That's where the story is supposed to insert itself in. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's still a great story in its own right.
Oh,
right,
absolutely.
I mean, it's one that you can take outside of it, and you don't necessarily have had to have read, Curse or White Knight in order to understand it, but
yeah.
I like that it fits in there, too, as it's like missing puzzle piece Easter egg type
Behind the scenes.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, especially considering the fact that we have, our own MurphyVerse at this point, where it's separate from New 52, Rebirth of Future State, or whatever the hell they're calling their universe these days.
Infinite Frontier.
That's a really great way to put it. It really is like the be-all, end-all Elseworld saga, because it is Elseworld.
I'm okay with that. He can keep on stories out. MurphyVerse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing stories, and I'll keep snatching them up like the greedy little fanboy I am.
Exactly. It's just one of those things where this is a Batman I enjoy reading, whether it's focused on Batman as the hero or the villain, or Joker the hero or the villain, or whatever, because the whole thing. And now, we get essentially a Mr. Freeze origin, but it really isn't a Mr. Freeze origin. It isn't kind of thing. It's more of his, how he grew up than anything else. So, as we know, script and story done by Sean Murphy. The art in this one is done by Klaus Janson. Colors and cover colors are done by Matt Hollingsworth. The letterer was And World Design. Main cover by Sean Murphy with Matt Hollingsworth, and the variant cover was done by Klaus Janson with Matt Hollingsworth. I really dug this. I thought this was great. I thought this was fun. As much fun as you can have in a Nazi story, but still, I mean, it's interesting.
It gives a lot of depth to a character that fans have given a lot of depth to, with backstory-wise. I mean, it picks a time frame and then puts him there and makes it beautiful, and it's actually a great story all in all.
So we start out with a freeze gun SS officer, because we don't know. There's no panels on here. There's no bubbles. There's no nothing. It's just some Nazi officer with a freeze gun. Okay, then. I'm glad that wasn't Victor. That would not be. I can understand taking a bank robber and making him, have a heart of ice. That would be great, which was done in the 90s. But this would be a little too far.
Yeah. That pushed some people's buttons in a hurry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love the colors. I love the backgrounds. The fact that we open up not knowing, like, this is young Victor Fries or Fries or however you say his actual whatever.
Let's just go with Fries. I mean, it works.
It's fine. Yeah, absolutely. And, he's, being told that he needs to promise to protect this young baby. And we don't know who the guy is. We don't know who the SS officer is or anything like that. And then we cut back to Wayne Manor. I love the color change between the past and what's going on in Germany versus how the story is being told in the present, or what we assume is the present.
You feel the dirt of the past, you know what I'm saying? It's a great time period. You feel the muck and the mire and the, I don't know, just general disdain with the colors.
Yeah, they really do set a nice tone. I mean, Matt does a beautiful job of setting that up because it helps you to switch what you're supposed to be feeling, and it's not necessarily a jarring change, but it's like a gentle transition between the past and the present.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did not get at all who the woman is supposed to be in the beginning of this. Seriously, if you guys could have watched me as I was reading this and when I got to where the end is and what we'll talk about at the end, because this is a spoiler-filled review, folks, if you hadn't noticed, because that's how we roll around here inside the pull bag. But literally, no clue who this woman is that's coming into Victor's lab here. And I'm like, okay, her family and the past and everything else. And interesting. And then, oh yes, by the way, Thomas and Martha are alive.
At this point, yes.
Yeah.
At this point, yes. And I've said this for years now. This podcast has been going on 8 years now. All as we ever see of Thomas and Martha is Crime Alley.
Yeah.
Most of the time, that's all we ever see because it's okay.
There's been a little bit more, but it hasn't ever been a really widespread focus. And when we get them, it's to move a story along or to set the pace of a story.
Or add a subplot.
Or add a whole nother Earth or something kind of thing.
Right.
Or Flashpoint.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the animated universe sets it up a little bit better because in that and also in Gotham by Gaslight, you get to see them for who they were to Gotham versus what actually happened and them being defined by their death. You get to see them in play as charity works and doing things to try and help benefit Gotham.
Right.
But it's very few and far between that you actually get killer backstory like what we're about to get.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the this whole, we have to save her and cryotech is the only way to do it. And my first thought, really quickly before I let you guys go, my first thought was, wait a minute. This story is not going the way I thought it was going to go. Especially, and I don't necessarily blame the creators, but that main cover, it's Mr. Freeze with his, I don't want to say Mysterio fishbowl head, but it's him in his tradition. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be some sort of story about Mr. Freeze and how he either became Mr. Freeze or what. Like, I had no idea going in that this story was going to be what it was. And then we go to this essential hospital scene in cryotech and having to put Martha under cryotech to save her. Wow.
Yeah, I enjoyed the deepening of everything that was going on. I mean, it could have just been a very two-dimensional, let's get to point A to point B kind of story, but he actually took time out to like try and develop things a little bit better than your average writer would for just one issue. Mm-hmm. I personally thought it was awesome. So.
Kendra?
I like it because, like I said, with Gotham by Gaslight and other stories like that, you got to see who Martha and Thomas Wayne actually were. And with this, it also adds to that canon because we're getting to see that, they have these relationships with the other people that are within Gotham, which absolutely makes sense. And you're getting to see these, not only the friendships blossom, like you get to with Thomas and Victor, but you also get to see that, these were relationships and bonds that were there. And I like that he's setting that up because it makes more sense than for it to be just random people that collide into each other all the time. When you have those ties there, it makes the story that much more enjoyable because then you have this pathway to follow. And that's one of the reasons that I like this one so much, is because we're in 3 separate time frames. And it just gives you this beautiful story. And like Ed said, Sean Murphy, for one issue, went to this length, which is just a kudos to him as a writer. It's an absolute credit to his talent.
Yeah, and between Klaus's art and his, like the panel where you're going to be fine, both of you, the crease, just the line crease of Thomas's hair in the middle of his forehead.
Yes.
Like, I mean, that just, if that doesn't show concern or worry or however you want to do it, however you want to say, showing the emotion on his face is like, holy crap. How on earth did they feel? And I know, you sit down, you create something, whether it's art, whether it's comics, whether it's whatever. You don't know how it's going to affect people. Right. I'm fairly certain in the almost 13 years I've been podcasting, I'm pretty sure nobody's cried in any of my podcasts that I've done. But it's one of those things where if I point out something, or if I say I liked something, or if I say I didn't like something, either people agree or disagree or whatever, they still have an attachment to whatever I'm releasing, whatever I'm putting out. Same thing with comics, writers, artists, whatever. You see something on a page that affects you so profoundly to the point of, holy crap, I see what that guy was going through at that moment with his wife,
right.
having the breathing mask on her and everything else. And it's like, her last words to him, Thomas, I love you. And what I love is how they put him in shadow, but they emphasize what he says, I love you too.
Yeah. That's
all in bold and in caps and whatever, but she kind of has the spotlight here. Not saying that he's fading away or anything, but he's, I love you too. Okay, we're going to save you. Now I need to go have a good cry or something. I don't know what, I no clue. Right. You know what I mean? But just showing that emotion.
Well, and that's kind of the mark of a good, like any good story or tale, where a writer is able to bring you in and an artist is able to deliver that. I mean, it's a marriage between the two talents that's made in heaven. And if it haunts you, then that's the pinnacle that I think anyone can ask of a book is, this stayed with me even after I read it. The next moment we're about to touch on is actually the one that got me, where you have Thomas after everything is said and done, and he's like, the I love you, and it'll be okay, everything's going to be fine. And Thomas is like, for all this time, I've been waiting for this baby, and it's been real for me. And he's like, at this point in time, at this singular moment, where it's a choice between my wife and my child. The child isn't even real to me. I can't see it. And I'd rather save the person in front of me that I can see. That singular emotion and that maybe 2 or 3 panels worth of dialogue stood out to me. Like that, like with yours, where it was haunting you with the way they had the tone set up in the shadows. Yeah. The fact that they were willing to touch on something that is so emotionally raw and hardcore, beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely.
So we get to Victor's, I guess, his lounge area of his lab or something.
Right.
Office. Well, I don't know. I say lounge because there's couch and there's a refrigerator. There's a whole kitchenette there. Yeah.
It's his apartment.
Yeah. Of course his apartment would be above his lab.
Of course.
Right.
Dedicated scientist.
There you go.
Come on.
And we then get into the story, because they're talking, Victor is talking about, we don't speak anymore. It was just too difficult. He was talking about his father, because Thomas asked him about his dad, and then we go into the backstory, and we go into what happened to Jacob and Jacob Smithson, or Smithstein.
Smithstein.
Who is Baron von Friese's best friend, and then we get taken to, back in Germany, and once again the color shift, I absolutely love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
The way that Hollingsworth puts the backgrounds and then puts von Fries or Baron and Jacob in almost like green tones, and then later in that next panel you see red tones in the background, but like the color shifts. And what I noticed now, and I didn't notice when I first read through it, is one of the instruments kind of looks like a blue version of what would eventually become Mr. Freeze's, cryo thing for his head. And I'm like, hey, your head's on a platter.
Right.
Yeah. And we go through Nazi Germany, which, yikes.
Yeah.
This is going to be a hard topic to address in a book and write a story around it. And I don't know how difficult it would be for writing.
There's only been 2 others that I can think of off the top of my head from personally reading that I can even think of that are like this. And that's over in Marvel's world, the story they did with Magneto, where it was a singular issue set as well, where you were seeing him in Nazi Germany in the camps. And then more recently, from a graphic novel standpoint, there was the one, I'm going to butcher the name of it, but it's Freiheit, which is basically free in German. And that one was about the White Rose Society. So, I mean, I can't think that this would be something that, without due diligence, without doing a little bit of heavy research, that you would be able to do this without, breaking a few eggshells. It can't be easy to write about.
No, it can't be. I think the story of the 2 characters of the Baron and Jacob, and where Victor, the Baron's son, fits in, I think that might have been okay to write, but just figuring out how to incorporate it into events that happened and make it its own story within those, you can't sit here and say, oh, this is 1945, and as much as we wish it would have never happened, but Hitler didn't have, if you're going to write a story without Hitler in it, it would be, I don't know, it's history, and there's nothing really that we can do about it. The only way you could really do anything about it is if you grab the DeLorean from 1985, but even that. Great Scott.
No, but I mean, at least in this one, from my personal perspective, I mean, I think that Murphy did a lot of justice, and he was really respectful with it. I mean, you have not only these 2 best friends that have started a company together who have ambition, and their dedication is to show that by working together that they can show that Germany should embrace their diversity instead of trying to single people out. And to see Baron von Fries, hide Jacob and his family and try to keep them safe. I mean, that's one side of this man. So you're actually able to see the duality that's created. I mean, the way he is with his son versus the way he is with Jacob. He's very cold logic. Not what Jacob is, where he's more familial bond and blood is thicker than water, and
fatherly.
Very. So it's nice to see that play out, because at that point it becomes a little confusing. Like, is Baron really a bad guy, or is he just trying to do through his logic what he thinks is going to happen to make everybody survive?
Yeah.
And I do have to say, though, as he's hiding them out, it gave me shades of high school back in the 90s reading Anne Frank.
Yeah.
Because that's what they did back then. They, the Jew families had to hide because, Hitler was against all Jews, no matter who they were.
Right, and I mean, not only Shades of Anne Frank, but also Schindler's List. I mean,
true, yeah,
definite pinpoints of that, especially where they get to the factory. But we'll get there when we get there.
Mm-hmm. What else do we want to say about the family life and how we see the turn in the Baron, because he joins the SS and he feels that it's his only option to keep them safe. And Jacob's like,
being in a room with Himmler.
Yeah.
Given what was at that point in time about what these men were capable of doing, when people, even German people, would not, succumb to their will and show their due diligence and duty to the fatherland.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being him in there, being like, well, my partner won't like this. Well, who's your partner? Baron literally has no choice, because if he says Jacob and he's honest, Jacob is considered Juden, and his whole family is up at risk. I would never want to be in those shoes, ever.
No, I couldn't. I just couldn't imagine it.
It's like the unwinnable game, I guess you could say. I mean, there's two choices, and both of them are going to lead you down a path you don't want to go down.
Right.
And, sadly, Chris Pine is not here to help us.
Right. But I mean, that's just another credence to the writing in this book, is they actually bring forth one of the men from the higher echelon of the Nazi regime, and the man was known for not caring unless you were showing your absolute 100% dedication. So, I mean, he really did not have a choice in the matter. Yeah. And we see that heartbreak from Jacob, because who would be able to understand that?
Yeah. So they eventually escape. They go hide out at the factory out in the woods here. And apparently the factory would be more horrific than Jacob thought, because, hey, look, all the cold guns are here. And they're experimenting on people, and holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a scene out of like some Indiana Jones shit or something.
Well, and that's what's crazy, is you have this moment between Baron putting on the Nazi uniform and saying to Jacob, hey, this is what they're wanting me to do. I want you guys to move to this factory. It's up in the mountains, so you're safe from Allied bombing. I'd be able to keep a closer eye on you, since they're going to want me here day and night working on these experiments. And then Jacob finally succumbs to it, because he feels like he has no choice but to move his family and do what's best for them. Mm-hmm. And in he walks, and these experiments are being performed on prisoners.
Yeah.
On his own people. Like, there's just no way to wrap your mind around it.
Yeah, no, there is absolutely no way. And it's, again, the color palette in this, and honestly, the color palette in all of the Murphy stuff for this series and for White Knight, and I'm assuming Curse, because I've only ever glanced at Curse at this point, because I haven't read it until, obviously, we'll get to it.
Right.
But just the color palette, like the blues of the factory, bounced off against the... Well, first of all, when you see that wide shot, when Jacob first goes in, is all this blue, and then right up at the top is the red and white and black Nazi flag, and I'm like, Yeah, I'd rather just, even though it's horrific to look at the blue, I just don't want to look at that flag. Because there's people all over this place. Like, ooh, yikes. Well, the colors here are just amazing, as well as the art. You know, how that's done and how interesting each person, like there's coming up here, we've got the, hey, what was that? I think I heard something as the Nazi patrol is going by. What's going on here? Yada, yada, yada. The next panel is, you need help picking it up. That soldier and then the 3 other soldiers that Baron that are facing us, but Baron is looking at, they each have a different expression on their face, and the main guy just has this like frown, like, sir, you need help here because you know, this and the other. Like, again, it goes to the art, it goes to the lines, it goes to, they're not just army, they're not just drawing and coloring the same, they're not stormtroopers.
Yeah, they're not generic replicas.
Well,
Big attention to detail.
I've been following Klaus Jansson's work for decades now. I mean, I think the first time I ever saw any of his work was when he inked Dark Knight Returns. So, but I've seen him do his books. I mean, I've watched him do his art in the books and everything like that. And man, the guy has got such an eye for detail. It's a little freaky at times from such like simple line work. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't say simple like his art is simple, but I'm saying like. Well,
yeah, I mean it's, you know, it's the lines of the facial expressions. It's not saying it's a simple thing, but it's like
you can do something like that with so few lines, which is,
absolutely. And the scene here where Jacob says, "Victor, listen carefully. Meet us downstairs at the back door. Don't let your father see you. You're coming with us." And then it pulls out to this giant nighttime snowy tree covered with the building, and it's black and blue and all the soldiers and everything else. And oh wow, so cool.
Right, and I mean, this scene hits hard for a couple reasons, because Jacob really thinks that Baron Freeze has turned to the other side. Like he no longer has faith in this person who is his best friend and wants to save Victor from his dad.
Yeah.
So he's like, you know, he's obviously given everything a thorough thought through, and he's like, you know what? You're coming with us, because coming with us is going to be the safer option for you.
Yep. And Jacob also has his new baby daughter with him as well. So there's that. And oh boy, where that goes, we'll get to that, folks. But yikes. Wow. I was floored. I'll just say it now. I was like, I literally stopped in my like I couldn't read it anymore. I'm like, wait a minute. You sneaky bastard, Sean Murphy. In a good way, but damn.
Yeah, I got to give it up to Sean Murphy in this, because he weaves together such a great story that, you know, you can't wait to get the next page.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So they're trying to escape. They get stopped. You know, where were you hiding? This, that, and the other thing. And Baron finally comes in. Oh, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. You know, and he tries to deflect. He tries to do the good thing. He tries to get the other soldiers to basically leave. And he basically says, you know, they better be unharmed or I'll report you to your commander, and all of that. And that allows them to escape, which is a good thing. Until Jacob decides to do something stupid.
Well, I mean, and Victor doesn't win. Like this part of the book got me, like, I was conflicted as hell.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, I'm like, holy crap, like I'm scared and I'm anxious because here it is. They've tried to escape. You think they're going to be okay, and no. And then here comes Victor, or Baron von Freeze, and he's trying his hardest to be like, hey, no, these are some of my escaped, people that I've been doing experiments on, and he thinks that he has all of this power, and you just want to stand behind him and be like, yes, look at you standing up and doing the right thing. This is what it was all for.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got angry because these other soldiers are like, no, screw you. Take him down the mountain.
And Jacob goes for the gun. Oh, and that essentially gets him killed. Oh man, I'm glad it was only one bang though, because there's a thing here later where it was like bang, bang, bang. But we see Jacob's death, and before we see him fully gone, Victor, take the baby. No matter what happens, promise you'll look after her. And again, this is the point where it's like, damn it, Murphy. The baby is Nora.
Yep.
Again, you don't see. I don't see, because I don't read a lot. Like I'm not current on DC. I haven't read. I can actively say I don't think, if I have, it's been a long time. I don't think I've read The Dark Knight Returns. I know I've not read The Dark Knight Strikes Again. I'm pretty sure no one would say I should.
Yeah.
But what'd you say?
No, you shouldn't. Don't read Strikes Again, and don't read Master Race either.
Oh, Lord. But it's one of those things where, for me, as a comic book, movie, whatever geek, the only thing, cartoon geek, the only thing I know about Nora is that she was Victor's wife, and due to McGregor syndrome, she had to be put under the cryogenics. That's really all I know. And just seeing a story tell it in a way where Victor is younger. This is his childhood, essentially. And come to find out, I don't know how. I mean, I know Nora is a baby in the past here. I don't know what their age difference actually is in this universe. But, like, seriously? Like, as soon as he revealed the baby's name, I had to get up and just walk away from the book for half a second, because I'm like, you jerk, Murphy. I love you, but you're a jerk for making me feel this thing. And obviously Victor's like, I promise. And, yeah. That's, oof. Oh, bad. Good, but bad. Sorry, folks. It's emotional, damn it.
It is.
It is.
I mean, I'll stand up and say that it is. I mean, okay, so for me, Freeze is actually one of my favorite characters.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout canon, whether it's Taz, where
not New 52,
not New 52, but whether it's Taz, where you got to see them meet in college and fall in love, and of course there was the disease, and he had to put her into the cryogenics lab in order to save her life while he's trying to get a cure. Whether it's the Harley Quinn animated series, where it's the same thing, only, spoiler alert, they find the cure, but it ends up killing Freeze. I mean, even the newer book where it was Victor and Nora, and you get to see them as kids growing up and meeting each other and falling in love, and still the disease is there. I mean, regardless of where the canon is for Victor, him and Nora have always been a constant, but I have to say that I really do appreciate what Murphy's done in this one with Freeze and Nora.
Well, he did it in a different way, a way that you're not expecting, because everybody's expecting, this is his love of his life.
Right.
No, this is his sister. I mean, they may not share the same blood, but by making that promise to watch out for her, he's been there with her entire life.
Correct.
So he has literally been her big brother for the entirety of their lives, and I love that. I think that was such a great little, just a smidgen twist, but it was so perfectly done that it was awesome. It was like, round of applause.
Exactly. It's one of those things where you don't need any ice to meet you puns anywhere in.
No,
you don't.
Because I think that would have taken away. Like, again, we don't see.
What's with the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
I mean, even in that, as much grief as you're giving Arnold Schwarzenegger, even in that, it's always been apparent that Frieza Nora's love has been at the central of his villainy. And that is one of the great things about his characters, is because he is the exception and the rule when it comes to all it would have taken is one choice, and he would have gone down a different path. He wouldn't have been a villain. He would have been a hero. And you get to see that play out beautifully in this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
And as we go along here, after Jacob is left because, he's dead, sadly.
I'm dead in the snow.
Yeah. He's like, they're like, come with me and do exactly as I say. And
at least he was good enough to be like, are you okay?
Yeah, true.
Like, for all this shit we've given this guy as a dad.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
And then straight into cold logic mode. This is what we need to do. Boom.
Mm-hmm. So Baron has the freeze gun, and because the models that they use for Baron and for adult Victor are so similar, because father and son.
Yeah.
Right.
But when he first starts using the freeze gun, that very first panel where it shows the freeze, it's a very small, because I'm looking at it in Comixology Guide of View, but it's that very small panel of when he first uses it. I'm like, wait a minute, is that our Victor or is that his dad? But it is his dad, I know that. But it's one of those things where this whole scene where he freezes all the soldiers. Wow.
Yes.
This is where the bang 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 happens. It's when Von Freeze is where Baron Von Freeze is killing the soldiers. Man,
nice.
I never knew bangs could look that cool.
Well, not only that, but there's one, and I want to, because it's only alluded to. It's never specifically stated that this is what's happening, because you don't really get to see it. But there's one soldier that he actually takes the time to crack him out of the ice.
Yep.
And then shoot him.
Yeah.
And I want to think that that's the one that killed Jacob, and
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
And was holding the gun to Baron's head, saying, either you let us take him down the mountain, or I'm gonna shoot you here. But I think that is who that is. That's my theory.
Yeah. And we get the reunion of the family here, and they're like, why should we trust you? And Von Freeze has nothing to say when they ask him that, and Victor just steps in. Don't worry, we're getting out of Germany, I promise.
Right?
Yeah. And
I love that scene.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm just sitting here staring at it because we've opened our book while we're going along with you, and I love it because when she asks him that, what is he expected to say?
He has no word.
Yes, every choice that he's made has been right.
Yeah.
Right. Every choice that he's made he thought was right, but in their eyes it was absolutely 100% the wrong way to go, and made him a traitor. And
I love that we, now that we come out of this, because they drive off and I assume they get to safety or wherever they're going, and Victor Freeze is like, and the rest, Thomas. Jesus Christ, I had no idea part of the arrangement was that I would ask too many questions. And then he turns, and it kills me. Have you ever heard this story, miss? I'm sorry, I never caught your name. It's adult Nora.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those moments. You're like, holy shit. All right.
I'm glad that the creative team did it this way, and we still have more to go with this, but it's one of those things where at that point of seeing adult Nora, that she survived and that Victor survived and they are where they are, whatever Sean and the team do with them next, whether it's in Curse or not, or whether it's in whatever happens after Curse, because I've heard that there's going to be a third thing. It's a rumor, I think. I don't know, and I didn't ask Sean. Heaven forbid. What'd you say?
I'd buy it.
Well, yeah.
In a half
I'd
second.
Buy it. Oh, yeah. I'd buy it for more than $1, too. we have Nora saying, it was actually my family who insisted I come to see you, Victor, after you wrote to them about this lab. Victor, we're ready for you. She's dilated. Thank you. And we go back downstairs. Before that, Thomas hands Victor the watch here. And I'm like, he's like, I was going to give this to my son one day, but I think you should hold on to it for a while. Because, well, Okay. Yes, thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Victor. And, everything kind of turns out to be okay. Martha's alive. Thankfully, Mark Zuckerberg didn't kill her. I'm sorry, Jesse Eisenberg. Oh, wait. Wrong story. Ugh. It's the safe word. Even though the title is Batman White Knight Von Freeze, I actually was not, after starting reading this story, I was not ever expecting Batman to ever show up in this, honestly. Right. I really wasn't. I was surprised at this ending. Anything else you guys want to say about this one? Anything else we need to bring up?
He makes Batman cry.
Yeah.
Yep. And they know that, whoa, yeah, shit, they know. In this universe, Mr. Freeze knows who Batman is.
Yeah.
So does Nora, because Nora's specific.
Given the events of White Knight,
yeah,
everybody knows.
Oh, true. It's been a couple of years since I read White Knight, so. And the Batmobile. Why did it have to be the Tumbler in this? Why, Sean? Why? Why did you tell that? Not that I dislike but TAS, 89, hell, even Batman and Robin's Batmobile. Anyway, I know, real world, gritty, whatever. And then Harley in the Batmobile, oh boy.
Yup.
That's going to cause some problems.
Not really.
No.
It's actually a really good subplot that carries through.
Well, right, yes.
And into the new Harley Quinn series. Miniseries, excuse me.
Yeah.
I ship it.
Yeah, this was fun. This was really fun.
Sean Murphy strikes again, man.
But that's the thing. Of anybody who I've seen in one issue be able to give depth to every character that they've brought to the platform, he's done it. In one singular issue, he was able to give every single character in this issue depth. More than we've known.
Even the soldiers. Even the soldiers that we'll never see again.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just a testament of how good of a writer and creator that he is.
Yeah.
Between him and Klaus Jan.
And one of the things we talked about at the beginning of this, where you get, whether it's the fully hardcover where you get all of the issues or you just get the singular issue, either way, that love note from Sean Murphy about just how excited he was to work with Klaus.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love seeing creators who, no matter how much acclaim they've gotten, no matter how far they've made it into the industry, are still excited to meet the people who helped them get there and to work with their idols. That shows just how much passion that he has.
Yeah.
Well, Sean Murphy's a giant nerd as it is. You can see that in everything that he writes.
Fair.
So to get to work with one of the people that inspired him, I'd be geeking out the whole time too.
Absolutely.
Right.
Honestly, probably he'll hit me up tomorrow and say, I need you to ink a project for me. I'd be like, okay, I'll do it for $10. The whole book? Yeah, sure, whatever.
Sadly, with the state of my life, I would say, could you pay me $10 a letter?
Epic letters, man.
No, but this, like you said, this one was fun. And this was actually one we were looking forward to discuss, because I got to do the review for this and this alone for Dark Knight News, because Steve J. Ray, one of my colleagues, got to do all of the actual issues for White Knight and Curse of the White Knight. And thankfully, I was able to fight him a little bit and get Harley Quinn, because it fell into my wheelhouse. But he knows. Freeze is one of my absolute favorites. And when I get to see somebody do him absolute justice and pay this character just the greatest amount of respect, this is it. Like, this is not one that should be slept on.
No.
Yeah, if you've read any of the White Knight stuff, you have to pick this up. That's all there is to it.
Absolutely.
If you haven't, pick it up anyways and read it so you can go read the White Knight stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and read White Knight again, because I'm going to have to do that before we do, or at least the last few, whatever, because honestly, I have not kept up with it, and it's just one of those things where...
Just dive into Curse issue 1, give you a nice recap.
It really does.
Yeah.
That's good.
I actually, the night that we got the hardcover of The Curse of the White Knight, I actually sat there for like 2.5 hours and crushed the whole thing in one sitting.
Because he was mad. Because when we got Curse of the White Knight was the first week that I had signed on to do the White Knight Presents Harley Quinn.
And it was the first issue.
And it was the first issue of it. And I finished reading it, and he was like, I want to read it now. And I was like, well, you can't until you read this. And he was like, damn it.
Shit, all right, whatever, let's do this.
So he crushed it so he could read Harley.
I did, and I'll tell you this right now. Crushing it in one setting like that was great. Probably the greatest read that I've had in months. It was amazing.
Is Harley supposed to be only 6? How long is Harley supposed to be? 'Cause
6 or 7 issues.
Okay.
I want to say it's either 6 or 8. Because I just finished doing the review for 5.
Okay. I'm not... I don't want us to jump ahead on this, but I'm just trying to look on Comixology to see. Issue 6 release date is March 23rd, so that's... Well, shit. That's 2 months ago now. It's the problem with pre-recording stuff, folks.
We're going back in time.
Yes, we're going back in time without Huey Lewis. Really. Yeah, that's very true.
Going back to...
Yeah, so I can't wait until Harley is actually collected with however many she ends up getting. So that, because I love reading it in trade more than singles, and how we're gonna
Netflix phenomenon. You don't like having commercials.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You want to have it all. You don't want to wait a week, or in this case, a month.
Man, let me tell you. You know what? This whole having to wait for single issues like Radiant Black or Transformers Beast Wars, it's like, whoa. I have to wait a whole month for another comic? Like, really? Seriously? Come on. Just right. And I understand it.
22 pages is like 10 minutes of reading. And that's if you stop to admire the pages for a minute or two. You know.
Well, I was telling Karen, I said, like I read this like, I don't know, an hour before we sat down to do this recording, and I'm like, oh, it's just a one-shot, so it's only 50-something pages versus what I did a couple months ago for episode 400 of the show, where comic concierge Dan Clark and I did the comic book history of comics, and that's 220 pages.
Right.
I read that within 6 hours, which is fine. I can do that, but I still need time to process and everything else. And that book is awesome. If anyone hasn't read that yet, Comic Book History of Comics, it's by IDW. It's done by Fred Van Lente, or Lent, Lente, and Ryan Dunlavey. It's really, really interesting. And obviously go check out episode 400 of this podcast. So coming up next for us, yes, exactly, right? You think I know how to do that by now. Coming up next will be episode 410 of the show, which will be Curse of the White Knight Part 1. Now, the reason why I'm doing Part 1 and Part 2 is, even though I want the story all in one go, I don't think we can... We will be here for Batwing level 2, 3, 4 hours if we do 8 issues in one episode. As much as I love doing that with you guys and with anyone that I podcast with, my old age and my legs and my back won't take another 2-hour recording session for Batman. Sorry about your luck, Batman. So Part 1 and Part 2 for Curse of the White Knight. These will be issues 1 to 4 will be Part 1. Issues 5 to 8 will be Part 2. So we'll split it up that way. And in between those, because episode 410 will be Part 1, episode 412 will be Part 2. In between those, we've got 2 episodes, one for Beast Wars number 4, which comes out this month here in May 2021. And then, as I said earlier, the comic concierge, Dan Clark, my buddy who's been doing stuff with me, he did the I Hate Fairyland stuff with me here inside this podcast. We're going to do something called 411. I'm down. I've got the comics 411. So I'm going to have him put together this whole list and diagram of how we think people should get into comics. There's no right or wrong way to get into comics, but like, what's the best, like, do you approach a shop? Do you do digital? Do you do this? Do you do, like, whatever's the best for you, we're going to try to put all that information together.
Yeah, so everything I just said just now, ignore. Episode 410 is not going to be broken up into 2 parts. It'll be one long 3-hour tour of Batman Curse of the White Knight. Now, back to the show.
And Dan is someone I know who actually goes to, like, he just told me the other day, or at this point a couple months ago, but we're recording this early, folks. Sorry about your luck. God, I've got a lot of editing to do in this episode, and it's my own damn fault. He just told me recently that he goes to the library and picks up like 10 or 12 comics, and I'm like, yeah. Oh boy, I wonder what the return rates are on those, because, like, you know, usually libraries only allow books, you know, a week, 2 weeks, whatever. Granted, in this whole pandemic we're living in, Karen had 2 books from our local library, which is essentially shut down at this point. But because of the pandemic and because of the library shutting everyday business down, they're like, all late fees are waived. Return them when you can. Yeah. We've had those books for about a year now.
Hopefully
and we just, well, yes, she did read them. And yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, we just returned them recently, kind of thing. And all I can think of is, you guys had books from the library for over a year. All I can think of is that one episode of Law and Order: Criminal Intent, where Rip Torn is the father in there, and the sisters are like, you kept a video for a year? This is, again, Law and Order: Criminal Intent, 2001 to 2011, where video stores and late fees were still a thing. You kept a video for a year, Charlene? You can't keep a video for a year. Do you know how much that's going to cost? Oh, Lord. Anyway, Batman, White Knight, Von Freeze, one shot, all about Victor Freeze and his family, along with his father, his mother, and Jacob and his family and everything else. 0 to 5. What are you going to give it to Ed?
5.
Kendra?
5.
5's all around, folks. Like, there's nothing in here that is not enjoyable. From the colors to the lines to the art to the writing to... I almost cried twice. Technically 4 times, because I almost did it when I read it and I almost did it on the show. So technically... The dude's making me cry 4 times in one day.
That's not a vendetta. I don't know what it is.
Exactly. There you go. And it's, it's a good thing. I mean, when an emotional moment impacts you, it's supposed to impact, that revelation of who the baby was. It's like, oh, what? Oh boy. Damn you. Where can the people find you online, Ed?
Twitter at 700, and Instagram on Sith Rules, or The Sith Rules, and on YouTube as well for my random Call of Duty videos. at Sensible Zed.
Awesome. What about you, Kendra?
When it comes to podcasting, I can be found on Spotify under the DC Comics News podcast, as well as Mad Love, a Harley Quinn tale. Also, I can be found doing news, opinion pieces, and reviews. Those can be seen whether it's for Dark Knight News, DC Comics News, Fantastic Universes, or Earth 9 on my Twitter, which is Devour for all words.
Oh, man, I can't make my oogling joke anymore. You suck. Anyway. I am at TFG1Mike. Make your great escape into comics. We will catch you next week here inside the Pull Bag.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at thepullbag and at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.
I can only beg your forgiveness and pray you'll hear me somehow. Someplace where a warm hand waits for mine.